I seem to be digging my hole deeper and deeper, and I'm trying to work out what my problem is, and even though I feel sort of invisible, like, there's 1,000 ghosts walking through me. I wanted to say what the point of the art is, at least to myself. And I realise too, most people my problems aren't existing. It's a spoiled man with a lot of privilege who's had a good run of it, and they wouldn't get what it's about. I think artists get what it's about, whether they talk to each other or not. Sensitives get what it's about. And art is a testament to the spiritual currency of the culture, and I would argue the spiritual pulse of a culture, and the sense of our own humanity through time, and a link with the past, the present and the future. I know I'm scribing quite a bit for retail rectangles that have a lot more potential than that. What I'm talking about is psychic anthropology. I'm talking about mental health of a community. And I'm talking about an oversensitivity to, weaponized cultural collapse, engineered eugenics, divisions of gender, negative male position, or mana in New Zealand as a corporate mind control experiment of a depopulating West. Eugenics, you say? What? That's a big word, James. What does it mean? Well, before the Nazis came along and killed, like a whole bunch of Jews, there were a bunch of very rich Americans. And before that, very rich British people. It's a little bit like getting rid of all the natives or all the Aboriginals or all the Native Americans. It's a little bit like that. They started trying to get rid of their slave population that emancipated themselves, sterilization and what have you. It's about race superiority, eugenics. But it's sort of based on a Darwinian idea of survival of the fittest, which means more like elite predator class get to cull the servant stock. That's actually what eugenics is. So when we're talking depopulation and climate change, for example, we're actually talking about the elite culling the slaves. Both those notions are elite propaganda notions. So they divide nations, they have forced migrations, they create situations to destabilize traditional cultures. Oh, you can throw your arms up in the air and say I'm a right-wing extremist. No, the right-wing extremists are the pedophile gangsters who run the banks and the corporations and the media outlets and have hands up your politicians' assholes as puppets. You know, they're the right-wing extremists. Men have this, and women do too, testosterone. It's a hormone, I'm told. It has aspects of defense in it. It has protection. It has aggression. It has will in it. It has action in it. You know, these things are severely eroded in our modern environment on purpose for intergenerational, you know, I mean, radiation, plastics. I mean, it's not by accident, people, you know, like. So again, you know, here's James with his conspiracy ideas, you know, being a big fucking victim about his privilege. Well, yeah, I can see how you'd see it like that. But from my point of view, I'm seeing a culture in fundamental denial of the way it's been constructed emotionally, psychically, mentally, to have these horse blinkers on about reality. You know, like if you've thought about where the mechanics of your broken home came from, sure, it's personal, it's curly, you know, your granddad was a drunk, you know, your auntie, you know, was raped and they abused people and so, you know, I mean, we've all got a nitty-gritty story, but let's look at the meta pattern. You know, meta meaning, well, I should go to a dictionary. Meta, I believe it's a Greek word, and I think it sort of means a schema. You know, an overview, a observable pattern from above. You know, that's what I mean when I'm using it anyway. You know, there's an objective scenario going on, a causal pattern in history. So, okay, so I began by saying, you know, I'm talking about my art and I'm talking about my type, a rebel, you know, but also a very earnest, good person who is trying to hold up some kind of responsibility, you know, like the eldest son in a chronically broken family, you know, trying to hold up his dad's position that abused him and you know, support his mother and, you know, look after his brother and you know, all of that, and can't win because I'm chronically wounded myself, and I saw the artwork in my culture, you know, and I was like, oh, Tony Thomason, oh, Philip Claremont, you know, early Bill Hammond, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a bit of spooky going on in those guys. I didn't see absolutely anything that talked about where I came from in New Zealand art, and those guys, like those three male artists that I just mentioned, had a little bit of outsider in their time, certainly in their time, and now they're gentrified, again, mainstream trophy items, you know, with like ooh stories around them. I'm not putting those artists down, but Jesus Christ, every one of them is completely, well, Claremont probably a little less than the other two, but conservative. Like squeaky clean conservative. Like in Sotheby Auctions conservative. You know? Like, does anyone actually go, we live in the Pacific, or, you know, what is human art in terms of a broader, you know, non-Western look, you know? I mean, we've started to do that now, you know? Teams of Polynesian women, you know, weave bits of plastic together and make, you know, very large abstract meta, you know, woven mats, and, you know, I'm not anti-painting, and I'm not anti canon, and it's not that. It's that reality is a lot more than the social norms, you know, would prescribe us to be. So I think what I'm getting at is that I actually take art pretty damn seriously, and I have done for a hell of a long time, and I'm just really disappointed that New Zealand is so shallow. You know, like it seems to be a shopping exercise. It seems to be like some trading card, you know, pastime of the well-heeled. It's like, it's more important. You know, art is about how much your collection is worth before you pop off. You're going to show off about how savvy you were in your name collection. You know, it's not about, you know, the actual merit of any of the work in any of these dudes' collections. I mean, the values of our culture are just juvenile. Like, do we have any spiritual culture, or are we just a commodity, you know, parasite? I mean, so I'm walking between worlds, you know, like I'm making art that might be seen in some of these fake, you know, situations, and quite often I call them art galleries, but the meanings I'm ascribing to the objects are actually lived experience from my point of view. You know, as if I was a child soldier, you know, survivor, as if my village had been fucked over from the clan over the hill. You know, like, I think it's that, you know, that, and, you know, when I say that kind of thing, it sounds really extreme. And yeah, maybe I am oversensitive. You know, maybe I am that sensitive. I can't seem to escape, you know, like the horror movie of my early childhood, or, you know, pathologize the social conditions that led to it, or you know, the mechanisms of torture that happened, you know, to further my negative self-image and thinking. Those are my responsibility, and I'm not very good at catering to those things. And I apologise, you know, for being a cunt, you know, to myself, and for having exhaust fumes, you know, from that, which don't help anyone, you know. I appreciate people talking candidly and with integrity when I see people's talks on these things about anything. I mean, you know, I don't look at artists talking about themselves. I look at spiritual people talking about things. I look at mythology, you know. I mean, I've got a broad range of research interests. Yeah, so I'm just having a real hard time with my ego attached to my own content and the work, what the fuck to do with it. You know, I'm also in love with the magic and mystery of something in the work, you know, and I suppose it's only ever love that makes us want to go further. You know, mystery. I mean, the problems are insurmountable, you know. I can't change New Zealand's retardation or bureaucracy, you know. And as much as I can bemoan the darkness, I've got enough of my own darkness to contend with as well. I suppose there's an innate vulnerability with making work that reaches inside oneself, and it's really difficult not being received, or being received and rejected. You know, like I've had 30 years of sometimes being received, but mainly feeling like I've been rejected, and I just can't get my head around, you know, I just wish I was a little bit more objective about the creature I have created, you know, in this situation. I mean, I want to pack it in, like, it's not fucking worth it. It's not fucking worth it, eh? And yet, what it's about is, you know, it's all there is. You know, the myth, the story, the story that makes the reality, is what I'm talking about. And I'd like to think that God, higher self, sense of purpose, truth, these things make through artists. That's part of, so I might have said in a previous chat, the meaning of the name prophecy is to speak for the divine within, to speak for the divine within. Not to be the divine within, and not to proselytize my stuff all over it, but to speak for the divine within. As if we have to take care of something, protect something, make something sacred about our calling. And it's that yearning and need for the sacred, anything to believe in at all in this culture. And there are plenty of things to believe in at all. I mean, friendly chat with a neighbour around the back, surprising empathy from someone you don't know at the supermarket. I mean, people are good, you know. But I suppose specifically I'm referencing an honest culture, a culture capable of looking in the mirror, you know, at the disease of what's occurring in order to assess and know what it is, instead of the nip and tuck and the lie and the makeup, you know. I think honesty is essential in order to have a soul. Because if you're not prepared to be straight up with yourself, then you're just living in denial, you know. Of course, self is an interesting word. There's many aspects to self, I find. That's part of art's mystery and intrigue too. It's like a crystal. There's a lot of edges and facets, and it's an endless exploration of styles and modalities and techniques and voices of communication. And it is fascinating and incredibly frustrating and difficult to know how to manage that kind of ventriloquist act, and you know, come out of that knowing who you are. And I lose myself. I feel like I have lost myself. I suppose I just have to accept that it's okay, that it's fucked at the moment, you know. Yeah, it's fucked at the moment. I'm fucked at the moment, you know, and I kind of like myself talking about it, because at least, you know, it makes sense to myself. I don't really care if you don't dig it, you know. As far as I'm concerned, it is contemporary art, you know, because you know, culture's not a well place to work in generally, you know. I mean, for anyone doing anything, I reckon. Maybe gardeners have it a bit better, but you know, even they have to manage the accounts and deal with the fucking landowners, I suppose, you know? Yeah, I'm pretty damn grateful. I mean, I have to be grateful, and I have to be grateful. I do. I have many, many blessings, and I'm really sorry that I've been such a cunt for a long time. I hate being a depressive. I hate burning out. I hate taking everything too seriously. You know, I hate being so attached to my process. But if I wasn't, the work wouldn't be real. You know, it's not just a fucking image I'm making. You know, it's actually quite often real. And the best stuff is real, and I know it, and that's the stuff I want to show, and then that's the stuff that also gets rejected. You know, I'm not happy being a candy-assed fake. I know, candy-assed fake is what most people want. But I'm not happy with that. I want the real thing, you know.